really thankful for this technology too.
I know we're
Live.
live.
Yay. All right. We're good. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Coaching to Flourish podcast. I am your host, John Andrew Williams. Here we are with Raj Anderson. Welcome and another Q&A session. Happy Tuesday, everyone in the world. And hopefully we can bring you some insights and inspiration along your journey.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's great to have you back, John, and it's great to be back. We were just chatting about retreats and things, and I've got a question for you. So I wonder if this will connect in any way, John. So I'm gonna throw this question out at you now. And I thought this is a John kind of question. So what does wired to create mean to you?
It's a great title. I like the book. I'm currently reading this book and doing a chapter by chapter analysis with Britt. And the thing that it really does, okay, so let's talk about the book and let's talk about the title. The book, I think what the book does really well is it brings together a lot of what's happening in positive psychology in one spot and puts it into a way that helps people understand the characteristics that's required if you want to increase your creativity. And there's a lot there's a lot of science there. One of my favorite positive psychologist speakers is Ken Robinson, who recently passed away. His idea of schools kill creativity, and that TED Talk to me is like the all-time best TED Talk of all time. And the idea, he's right on with ideas around when we start to emphasize grades and judgment over curiosity and creativity, we produce students who are oriented to be risk adverse. They don't develop that inner world of trusting themselves, and only until later, I feel like in college or or in sport, or maybe creative academic things like doing science fairs or something that involves competition and intellect, do people really learn to push themselves and trust their intuition as much as their intellect. That's what I'm getting out of this book. Is it brings a combination of a lot of those things together, and it's nice. It feels like I don't know, like when you go back to a familiar place, but you're a little different and the book is a little different. That's my experience now with it. And the title, I love the title. It reminds me whenever I get frustrated or think, oh, this is hard, or or people, like, what are we capable of? It sounds odd, but I look at roads and cars and trucks and think, we made these things, and that's amazing. And that to me is like the human beings are like, we're designed to be creative. And that's what the title to me means. And for me, cars represent that. It's a wow. It's like, wow, would these things happen? I think of the ancients, like what would they imagine if they saw a road happening right now? People just hop out of it. I mean, so what's going to be another 2,000 years from now? We're going to be that little spaceship and people just appear from like a portal, who knows? Anyway, that's it.
Well, what does creativity look like for you?
Yeah. I think there are a couple things with big realizations I've been having about the book and impacting creativity in my life. And I'm looking at this organization, Coach Training EDU, as a creative endeavor. Like, at my best, I'm really creating art, and it's human beings, sharing, emoting, ideating. We're really in a space where, how do you bring together a group of people from all over the world with a common vision and a mission of trying to bring more kindness and empathy to the world in a way that's financially sustainable? It's a magic trick. That's what we do. So it feels a little bit like part magician, part artist. And at my best, I really view the work that we're doing as art. And this is part of it. I mean, putting on these podcasts, working with you in this space, really trying to keep reading what's happening in positive psychology and stay on top of those things. It's like, it's preparation for the art. So that's why I see it. And then I have other like side creative projects that I work on, but those are still under wraps.
We waiting to hear what you've got under wraps, John. I think as I'm thinking about creativity and, being a coach and having your own business as well, I love coaching. And I was thinking about this, as you grow and expand the business, and there's more and more of to me, it can be the tedious systems to put in place. Some people might really love systems, but you're putting the systems into place and you're doing all detail things and working on contracts. And I'm thinking about creativity this morning. It felt a bit heavy for me. And I thought, this is why I've got to make sure that I'm always still doing some level of coaching, because it's just when you're in that space and you're really trusting, you're being curious. I feel light in that space, and I feel energized when I come out of it as well. Yet the other thing I was also thinking about, I work with a lot of execs, and some of the work that I'm doing, I do consulting as well, and you get so into logic and strategy, and I'm not as fulfilled or as joyful when there isn't creative moments in my life. So I do ask execs a lot. The question comes up, what does creativity look like for you? What does creativity mean for you? And for me, it's sometimes, I think we've discussed this before, sometimes it's just cooking or trying different recipes and experimenting in the kitchen. What do you think? How do you see that as a challenge for people in the corporate world?
Yeah, a couple of my friends who are in the weekend, they are very much into that world, and it's fascinating because it's interesting when your work might be really tedious, like when your work is into the looking at analytics or numbers, or trying to make suggestions, or maybe it's sales oriented. It's interesting when your work isn't necessarily feeding that creativity that I think some people are yearning for. Yet it's critically important work, and it enables other extremely meaningful projects to also move forward. So it was interesting to see people processing what their work means, because it's a wow, to see people process this out loud. I too feel it, like when I'm working as in like the website, the analytics and all these kinds of things, and then I have coaching sessions because I'm creating these demos, and I feel completely lit up and alive. I think this is amazing. I love coaching. Part of me thinks back a long time ago to when I was only coaching and not training. Those beautiful years of just coaching, and then training, where I was doing most of the training, and then now I do hardly any of the training. And then when I get back into a classroom, I love it. I think it's trying to figure out, what is that strength? Like, I spend a lot of time for me, like trying to figure out, okay, so what's my strength? And I realize very clearly now, like, my strength is love of learning. I love learning, and I love teaching, and I love finding things out and telling other people about them. That's like, I've been doing that my whole life. And I feel like when coaches do that, when they figure that out for themselves, or when anyone figures out, what is my strength? What am I really good at? How can I increase that? I feel like that's where the invitation to powerful creativity comes. Can you find that cooking? Yes. Can you find it doing whatever? Yes. It's more about it's not so much about the topic as much as it's about the characteristic that you're bringing to whatever you do. That's been my understanding of where the most powerful creativity comes from. How about you, Raj? What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with what you're saying. I guess I'm just reflecting, asking myself that question as well, of like, what else needs to happen for me to create space at the moment for that creativity and pause and just reflection.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious. I want to get into it. What's your signature strength, Raj? Like, what would you say it is?
What's my signature strength? Being present for other people,
Mm-hmm.
making other people feel that they're really important when they're in that space and in that moment with me.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't do it enough for myself. So I'm going to take that away, John.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was a gift there. That power of
There's
space.
more too.
I know. You're holding back.
What's underneath it? What helps you become present to other people?
I think I'm motivated by wanting to make an impact. And, I am really driven by, I love all things coaching. That's why I'm here in this space with you. I'm driven by that mission of wanting to make coaching accessible. Yet I am really motivated by that desire to want to help others
Mm-hmm.
make that change. And I even use that motivation to, I say at times, force myself to do things for me. So like working out, or because I'm a bit of a workaholic, and my values are that, I'd love for my value of health to be right at the top, but I discovered that was an aspirational value. It looks good to me if it's at the top, but my professionalism or doing things for other people can fall right to the top and overtake that. So even to do things for myself, I have to remind myself, well, if you want to show up for others in this way, you've got to take care of you, because role modeling is really important to me. I've got to walk the walk and talk the talk. God forbid people don't trust then what I'm saying.
That's awesome.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's really love. I mean, if you get down to it, it's love. It's an empowerment of other. It's an intention. It's an intending to and empowerment of other people. That's cool.
and there's curiosity and John in action right there live. We did not rehearse this.
Oh gosh.
Thank you,
It's good
John.
to know who you are. It
Mm.
helps. It helps to know. Uh, I think it took me a while to figure it out. I think, and that's the cool thing I think about the coaching journey is it helps you figure out your strength in it too, like where you're at with things. And for me, I really view coaching as an extension of, for me, that strength of love of learning. Like I get to learn about other people. I get to go in there and learn and feel and think and listen. I mean, it's essentially professional listening, and there's an art form to even listening because you have to be aware of your own biases. You have to be aware of your own assumptions, aware of your own. How are you like? What's the filter you're using to listen through? And we don't spend time on that as a society. We don't. We assume it, and it gets crafted usually unconsciously by culture around us. Yeah, I mean, I feel like um, it's amazing, but I feel like the biggest skill, the most valuable skill is going to be the skill of listening. And that's what we're getting to. Knowledge is ubiquitous. You go and you can find anything you want to find in 0.0003 seconds. Um, Speaking, being loud. I mean, you get that all day, every day. pick your platform, but it's listening. That to me is the wow. You know?
So I think, John, this probably leads nicely to another question I have for you.
Let's do it.
What advice do you have for new coaches with discomfort during coaching sessions?
It is keep going, just keep coaching. Um, it's a stage, and that stage doesn't last that long if you keep coaching sessions. There were times when I was early in my coaching career, I was just highly uncomfortable with the coaching. I knew coaching was really valuable and good because I was a client, and I knew how much I, as a client, was getting out of the coaching session. So I think if you are coaching other people, uh, it's helpful to have your own, to be a client as well. And if you don't want to spend money on it because you're trying to make it as a business, and I was there too, I would do round robin exchanges with people and say, person A coaches person B, coaches person C. You figure out something like that so you get coached so you can feel the value of it. It's 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 helpful to be able to have that experience, so you're not wrestling with where the value of coaching is coming from, because that's what that's what I was trying to do, was trying to prove the value of coaching, prove my choice was correct in choosing to become a coach, and try to logically just demonstrate value for coaching sessions that I was trying to do with people. And I stopped that pretty quickly. So my other thought on it is enjoy that step, because that step doesn't last very long. If you keep coaching, it will fade, and you might look back at nostalgia on your first steps as a coach.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
I mean, discomfort isn't all bad, though, is it? I mean, if I think about, I still feel discomfort before I'm going to present or I'm going on to do certain things. Still, certain clients that I've had, that are new clients in corporations, where I get those butterflies in my stomach, or a little bit of that feeling. And, I'll be asking myself, like, and I remember asking my coach what I was working with, and I was like, why am I still feeling like this? I've been doing this for years. I've done this so many times. Where is this coming from? And I won't use the language, or my coach can use colorful language sometimes. But, she was like, what is the benefit of that feeling to you? And for me, it keeps me on my toes a little bit.
I actively seek after that feeling again. Like I try to go after it. Uh, I don't feel it anymore when I coach people. I don't even feel it anymore when I coach people in front of a classroom of people on Zoom. I really feel it even when I'm coaching people in front of a big audience. I still don't feel that. Uh, Only if the coaching is going really bad, or if my client is. There was a talk at NYU I gave. This is before right before, like October before the pandemic, and I was there, and my client, it was just going bad. Like the first 10 minutes were pure, just everyone was looking at us. There were maybe 150 people there. It was a really big room with huge columns. Like the room setup was a little wonky too, because there were people who were like had to move behind peers to try to see us. It just was like the whole thing was just a complete mess, and she was being coached around I think a Halloween costume or something, and it was just not good. And then about 10 minutes into it, uh, there was a part of me that was so uncomfortable, but that was also enjoying the challenge of it and bringing myself back to that space. And sure enough, it breaks open. She said something, and there's an opening, and then the coaching becomes this amazing thing, and we have it on film, and it's like mind blowing. And I remember that feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm in it. Like, what if this goes bad and I have to spend another 5 hours with these people and have to really work to get them back on my side. Like, this is going to be, you know, like, welcome to New York. Can you do this lift for 4 hours? You know, 150 people, like, you know, people might start walking out at a certain time. Like, that's what I was thinking in my mind. And I mean, pulled it out. It was wild. It really was. So I think, you know, those first coaching sessions, I was bad. There's no way around it. I just was a bad coach when I first started. It took me a little while to figure it out. What I'm really happy with the current state of the training is I feel like I learned from the gaps that I had as a coach, and some of them are, if you set the agenda really, yeah, if you set a strong agenda at the beginning of a session, that helps. If you have, you know, you can stay in curiosity. If you know, different default questions, like what are you learning about yourself? You know, learning questions help. Putting it back on them help. I feel like the training, I've tried as hard as I could to help people avoid the pitfalls that I fell into. And a lot of the feedback that we get from coaches who take our training and go out into the world is that, yeah, this is good. You know, they might go to other training programs for like health board, or before we had the health board certified, and they'd come back and say, yeah, this like people who are in my training asked me, where did I get my training from? Because the coach training EDU coaches are strong, and I'm really proud of that, really, truly. And I think there's such a trust in the process when you can see it and see other people experience the same success too as coaches. You hear it in their calls or when they give workshops or presentations, like, this stuff works, and you trust it. I mean, you're an example as well, Raj, of I mean, what you're doing with your speaking and all of it. It's yeah, it's in the space.
I agree with you, John. It's that trust, isn't it? It's remembering the 3 trusts. It's remembering to trust yourself. And I think just some tips I would give new coaches as somebody who can still feel discomfort. I was attempting not to coach myself in my mind, because I was like, oh, maybe that discomfort is part of who I am and my values and what we just talked about earlier, because I care so much about wanting to make an impact. So, you know, a tip I would give, and I do this myself, is if discomfort showed up during a session, you know, whatever that kind of session might be, I'll journal afterwards in terms of what was coming up for me, you know, what was showing up, what other work would I like to do on myself, or why was the inner critic so active in that moment. So I think there's a few things to think about as well, you know, in terms of what is that discomfort? Is the discomfort over your own perfectionism? Is it over value add? One thing I want to share is sometimes I've heard coaches share discomfort with a topic that has come up.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what is it that triggered you about that topic? Or like, what assumption or judgment came up for you? What inner work still remains to be done? So there's like that piece. And then for me, it's really important, John, that before I go into a coaching session or any kind of session, I'm very intentional. So I would say to coaches, you know, give yourself 5-10 minutes. Don't be going back to back from session to session, especially when you're new. Give yourself a few minutes, do whatever prep. You know, if you want some mini guidance for yourself, sometimes I know coaches are writing TIME down on a piece of paper just as a reminder. Yeah, you want to be present, but I think, how do you give yourself a minute just to be mindful? Leave yourself at the door, as you said, and be there and present for your client.
Mm-hmm. Things I've seen help coaches at the beginning is having a list of powerful questions, just a 1-page, just review it, not necessarily. You don't have to read them like to your client, but I heard a coach do that once. I was listening to an overview, and it was one of the oddest overviews I've ever listened to. And then it took me about 5-10 minutes to figure out what was happening. And they were going through a workbook, asking whatever question was next, without any regard for what the client just said. It was amazing. It was, I felt like it was art. It was like coaching art in a way. It wasn't bad. It worked kind of, you know, and that is just, Once I figured out what was happening, I went through stages of shock, horror, and then utter fascination. And are you kidding me? Let's listen to this because this is amazing. Um,
That would be a good quiz to do. I remember we did that in the
it was amazing.
2.0 with you, John, once.
It
You were
was
just,
amazing.
we were picking random questions.
Right.
And not that we're telling you to do this, but it was a good experiment, wasn't it? To
Mm-hmm.
actually see what happened.
Right. Right. And my main takeaway on this, and when I listen to coaches struggling, is usually because the coach is trying to do too much. It's not that it's not because the coach is trying to do too little. And you really can, you really, as a new coach, you really can trust that your client knows the value they need to get out of a session. They just need processing space. Like we as human beings, we just need space to process. And so much value in the coaching comes from just sitting back and listening. That's enough. That is so enough. And when people do that, you can almost feel it's like the quality of the space changes. I'm convinced that we'll be able to measure this. 1,000 years from now, we will be able to measure emotional love energy, just like we can measure electricity. And maybe it's like mirror neurons or whatever, but there will be some measurement that we will have that will be able to do this. And because you can feel it. You can feel when someone's truly listening to you, or when they're or if they're listening to themselves listen to you. There's a difference.
So is there any one or two back pocket questions you think coaches should have?
My trademark question is, what are you learning about yourself? Or what is the situation? If this situation were designed to teach you something, what would it be? I think I ask it almost every session. I'm realizing that when I'm making these demos. Use it. It's good.
Yeah.
What about
you can't go wrong with it.
Yeah. What about you?
I think a tip that I would share is often when obviously assessing lots of coaches like yourself, I can hear new coaches wanting to go to the doing too soon or focus on the problem. And I would say catch yourself in that moment and ask a learning question, like hand it back to your coachee or the client versus asking that doing question. And yeah, my go-to, what are you learning about yourself right now? Or what awareness just took place?
Mm-hmm.
I like to mix it up a bit as well so that they're not just, kinesthetic feeling questions. It might be a visual one or an auditory one. What does it sound like or what are you hearing when you're saying that out loud? There's like an auditory question there because people respond differently. Not everyone's highly kinesthetic or highly visual, are they? So I like to mix it up, but it's the essence of the question is the same. And we're on time. I don't know how we got to time.
We are, and I have a coaching session. I'm going to go right to a coaching session now for a demo. I'm creating a demo library of coaching that maybe we'll bring some snippets in. Right? I'd love to hear. Part of me wonders, do I still have it? Like I know I've been training people but I used to coach 40 hours a week, a ton of coaching, and then I did lots of training, and now I really only coach on maybe 3 hours a week if I'm lucky. So I don't know. I feel like it's interesting to get back in it after doing all this research and really feeling the absolute utter joy in being able to release all ideas of you and just get really curious about someone else. It's a privilege. It's a joy. It's work. It's play. It's all of it. I feel really jazzed by it.
Well, we'll look forward to listening, John.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Thank you, Roger. You're amazing. Appreciate this time with you. And thank you, everyone, for watching. This has been another Coaching and Flourish Q&A.
We'll see you soon. Bye.